Is many students and professors from, so very welcome to everyone. Today it's a very special event. First of all, let me introduce the system. We open a kind of saloon, which is a series of conferences with international professors. And we would like to introduce more ideas from abroad and also some experts from China concerning architecture and research. It's a series of events that it is standing with the whole year. This is the second and very beautiful and important event. And we have two guests from Italy and a good friend from China. Who speak about some architecture that they have done. And the first guest is Professor Marco Petreschi, honorable professor in Roma La Sapienza, and he will introduce some of his remarkable job in this conference. Sometime in China, we have the habit to look at things big. In this case, yes, the size is big, but I would like to introduce you the idea of the quality and the control in between the big scale and the detail. Probably this is one of the most remarkable quality of the Italian architecture, and Professor Petreschi is extremely able to touch all those kind of scale, size, quality, and especially a very important element, which is the relationship in between the existing architecture and the new architecture. It's not so simple to put an element inside the city, throw it what it was done, unimportant, and then the architect, the creator, put his own idea in the center of the city. No, that is not the correct approach. Or maybe it is much more difficult and much more sensitive ability to create the right relationship in between the old and the new. So I please Professor Petreschi to come to the stage, and he will give you a very good lecture. So please take very care of his words. Thank you very much.
So, can you read me? Now, okay. Hello. First of all, I want to thank Paolo and many others who permit to stay here with you and with my colleague Nilda Valentin and my PhD students. I hope this occasion will be the first of many others also in Rome, so that we can exchange our experience. Well, now starting from the title of this lecture, by the way, I want to thank the authors of the poster that I like so much. I want to say that I think that pre-existence for an architect is necessary moment of study to better understand what happened and existed before us. In other words, I believe that the idea itself of architecture is drawn from the theater of existence, that it means history. And so we can, with it, observe a lot of things and the experience of many other architects, and in the same time we can read from buildings, historical center, landscape, in other words, from towns and nature. In this way, pre-existence becomes an instrument necessary to our work. Pre-existence, in other words, is, as I wrote in many books and interviews, is theater of the world, theater of existence. But pre-existence, as many believe, is not a supermarket where it's possible to take and copy details or facades. My opinion is that we have to capture the method used by many valid architects and to have the capacity to put in balance the past with innovation. For this reason, I don't believe in architects who are affected by Adam's syndrome, that is to say, before me doesn't exist anything. So, before showing you the result of my work, I want to expose the theory of my method, that in many cases I use the history and the pre-existing elements as the beginning of a new project. So I hope to convince you that this method was valid also in the past, and for this I had always transmitted this method to my students. So, what I believe is that everything is starting from the body. The body is for me, and not only for me, but also in the history we can try this rule, is the measure of the space where we live and where we design. So I don't believe only of Vitruvius, but also Francesco di Giorgio Martini, who was a very important genius of architecture. And you see also in paintings the concept of the body. You see the painting of Piero della Francesca is conceived just to be the measure of everything, not only in the past, also in the modern time. And you see Aldo Rossi that put the body as the measure of every design. This is Calatrava. And in many schools, in fact, today they use exactly to use the body as the measure, and the people as to design the body as the measure of architecture. With these rules, the most important architecture in the world were realized, so that we can see the archetype of the Western architecture, such as Pantheon, such as Parthenon, and Leon Battista Alberti, and Palladio, and so this is the situation. So I believe that it is necessary to study and to know how to build our ideas. It's not my word, it's the word by Vitruvio, that is one of the most important architects in the Western culture. So on the left you can see an architect when he studied and when he practiced in the work inside his idea. So the measure, I told you, is the body. And where we apply this, our ideas, we apply in nature, in historical center, in the suburb. So this is my method that is consists in 6 points. Imitation and quotation of existing historical building, imitation of the ruins or the architectural fragment as an instrument to recall the poetry of the unfinished and artifice to ironically remember an impossible past. The third point is in contrast, the refusal or negation of the pre-existing building. The fourth one is in continuity with nature. The fifth one is in continuity with the pre-existing building. Stratification is the last one as an evolution element of architecture. Now I want to demonstrate to you in the past and the modern time as these 6 rules are all valid. So here we are in Florence, for instance, and Brunelleschi brought this building on the right side, the Ospedale degli Innocenti, and after sometimes 1 century after, Antonio da Sangallo was in continuity with the pre-existing element. And the same thing in modern time, Robert Venturi, making the addition of the National Gallery, was inspired by John Soane, that is typical of British tradition. The fragments are present, for instance, in the 19th century restoration of the most beautiful road in the world, Appia Antica, and at the same time the site used the fragment as element of architecture. It's useless to demonstrate nature in the past and in the present. Here is a temple that is inspired to the site, and on the right side is Gaudí, and the other one is Frank Lloyd Wright, as you can see. The same thing was made in Italy. This is the most beautiful, important monument in Ity, that is a memorial for the Nazi victims in Rome, was built by a very important professor of our school, Perugini. And this is, for instance, point 4, in which we can see that in the past, when Gothic was not used by architects, but the Renaissance was the fashionable thing, Serlio, a very important architect, thought how in this way you can transform an old Gothic building in a Renaissance building. It's the same building that you can see, and it's a sort of do-it-yourself, in which you can see that the same building is transformed. Here in Gothic you see the entrance on the right side, and with the rules of symmetry of the Renaissance, it was transformed in this way. And in our time, it doesn't care about the pre-existing element, such as this is Frank Gehry, that you know very well. So the same thing can we say for Ian Pei, who was inspired by the Illuminism culture in France. And this was one of the 5 architects, Charles Guattoni, point 5, put in continuity the work of Wright with the extension inspired by the continuity with the design of Frank Lloyd Wright. The 6th and last point is stratification. We are in Rome. This is not Colosseo, it's a Teatro Marcello, it's a little Colosseo close to the Colosseo. And Baldassare Peruzzi, an architect of the Renaissance, built a building over Rome, and as many other cities, is built with stratification. So Rome is in continuity of 3,000 of years, building over itself in continuity. Venice, 3 parts of the beautiful square of San Marco, and you can see that in different time, in 3 different times, every architect respects the work of the other. So, no, thank you, it's not necessary for the moment. So, this concept of stratification we can see exactly with Palladio. If you see the genesis of this block, we can start from medieval age. Then, after 1 century, the right one on your right. Then, after 2 centuries, the other one, but it's the same building. And then at the end, Palladio, who invented this kind of element, Serlio, that in this way it can continue the axis and give regularity to the building. So this is the final result. Now we have spoken about large scale, but if we, just to demonstrate the stratification, the 6th point, we can see also the little scale. Here is one of the most important museums of Roman ruins in Italy, and you see this statue. If one look at this statue, it can think that they were made in the same time, but they were built in different times, built during the first Greece, then Roman, then Baroque. But at the end, this kind of stratification leads to the unity. And this is the most important example. This is Ares, Mars, I don't know as you call it, and it was broken and was rebuilt and restored by Bernini. The sword, the shield, the cupid, but at the end, this kind of meaning stratification, at the end, is a unity. This is an example in Rome of a very important architect who tried to, with stratification, to build a modern element. The first block is offices and then dwellings over. Now it's not necessary to demonstrate what Scarpa did in many his work, in which the stratification is the principal element of the composition. Well, we come back to these 6 points, and then I want to demonstrate with my work this concept in reality. So I want to demonstrate with building on persisting buildings, building in nature, building in the built environment, and follies, dreams, and fantasy in architecture, because an architect also, if you have nothing to do, perhaps it's wonderful to continue to work with dreams, but continuing to design. So this is an example of a little building very important in the center of Italy, in a little town of Italy. It's the building for custom, and I make the master plan, and in the end I make the possible to give safety to this building that they want to destroy to make a skyscraper. And the situation was this, and this was the beginning of the work, in which we make a lot of drawings, a lot of ideas, and then at the end, in continuity with this pre-existing element, we try to build all the new building. And we discovered at a certain moment that there were the ruins under the land. And so we try, you can see from the section, to save these ruins so that people can enter and to visit all the building without destroying the ruins. So these drawings are in a certain way very rare now, because they were made with colored pencil, not with the computer. And so this is the result, the final result. These are the details that were inspired in the tradition of the site. You see bricks and iron, and bricks and iron in a way that doesn't disturb the pre-existing element. So the same in the internal, for interior design. At the end, this is the final result. So this is another building that is near Via Veneto. You know, Via Veneto is the famous street of Fellini, La Dolce Vita, and this building was completely empty inside. It was completely destroyed. So we get inspiration from a very important gate that is in Rome, that is of the same period of this building, that they use this element as element of the time. So you can see the way in which we give an interpretation, a modern interpretation of this element. This is another building in which is a competition that we won 10 years ago, and it is a deposit, and this deposit was completely destroyed. Every competitor destroyed this element, but I want to maintain, we won for this reason, we want to maintain the memory of the site, because this was a town who lived of agriculture. And this exactly was the memory of this town, because it was a new town built in 1940. So we transformed, as was the competition, in a concert hall and in a museum. With this kind of composition that is a stratification. We go over the pre-existing element, but trying to be in dialogue with it. So it was a very difficult work, because you know, new rules of an earthquake make a lot of work, and this is the final result. And now it's, you can't believe it, but it's in progress. It's not finished. And this is what will be. This is the stage, and so on. Now, this is a recent work. About 7 years ago, we, with Nilda and my other partners, we won this international competition that is the Central Bank of Tirana. that was built in the central square of Tirana, the principal square of Tirana. It was built in 1930 by a professor of our school that I never met, 70, 80 years ago. And it was very funny, the think that a lot of people participate to the competition, and I won with the same chair that this man has 80 years ago. And the work was not finished because for the Second World War. And so they make a competition 7 years ago. We try to enter in dialogue with this present element. So we went in the archives of this professor. We can study every details of his works just to restore philologically the pre-existing element. And then the addition was really a very dialogue. And was the fortune for us was that we gave a sense, an idea of this addition. I want to say that perhaps many of you doesn't know that a central bank is a unique building for a nation. And this bank must represent the people, the nation. And in which way can we do such a thing in a country that was terribly destroyed from political situation, and they now are a democratic nation? We thought that the only thing to represent this innovation was to represent something that belongs to everybody, to the poor, to the rich, to many others. That is to say, the landscape. And we try to represent the landscape of Albania that is constituted by water, rocks, and canyons. So we discovered that this building was, the layout was on a diagonal element. So we study all the situation, such as to rebuild something on the same diagonal element. And it was very difficult also because we have to do 4 stories of garage. And these are many studies that we make before the final solution, just to enter in dialogue with the pre-existing elements. So we use the same materials. Was a particular materials that now is not possible to find because it was a special bricks that was realized until 1945, and we rebuilt it, and then we tried to make a sort of canyon to enter and to have a fall at the entrance just to recall the water, and this is the final result. These are our drawings to demonstrate the connection between the old and new building. And you can see the entrance and the rocks on the right side, just because we cut the marble. So in this way we can recall the mountains. These are the details. And this is the connection between the old and the new, without disturbing. And you see, on the left side there is our new building, and in front the old building. And we have to connect the 2 parts with 2 stairs. And so in this way the stair was, our idea was to make like a wave without touching the pre-existing element. So this is the arcade. And then the restoration of the pre-existing element, the mosaic, the furniture, philologically rebuilding everything, the doors, the handles, and you see these pictures from the archives arrives to rebuild completely the same atmosphere respecting the pre-existing element. But at the same time, enter in dialogue and to be not a vernacular reply to this building, but the continuity of the school, of our school. This is here is another one that we have to, now we are working to this one. It's the same situation, an old building of 1930, designed by very important Florentine architect, Gerardo Bosio, who made the master plan of Tirana. And this one also, the same method, archives, rebuilding of everything. But I don't want to go on because it's very long, this situation. And the roof garden with the new element of the library and the furniture and many other things. So this is the final result. It's a very complicated building, and you know that I am showing you a sort of miscellanea, you call, because it's not possible to explain every project that you know, to design this project it's necessary years of works and years to realize. But just to give you an idea what I mean of the 6 points I exposed before about the continuity and stratification. Well, this is building in nature, and in this kind of building we were in a landscape with geometrical elements of nature. So for this reason we realized a building that was inspired to geometry. Also, this, you can see that this kind of transparent element and geometry were realized inside. This is another situation in which the area was a triangle, a completely triangle, and so also in this case we adopted this building to the area and to the site all around. And being a triangle, the situation of the corner was one of the most important elements. And behind this building were terrible buildings, so for this reason we built a sort of wall just to hide what happened behind. These are some details. This is a school, for instance, and the school is near a very important Roman temple that is the goddess of fortune. That is 2 miles close to the school and is built on the hill. And for this reason, this is the goddess of fortune, and this is the result. We used this same sweet element on the hill without cutting the hill. And so you can see from the section this kind of situation. And then in front we have a bell tower, and so we use the chimney to be a sort of connection between these 2 vertical elements. This is inside, this is the chimney. Here, always in the nature, in Sardinia, we built 6-8 homes, and in Sardinia they used to make a sort of building like Disneyland, with color, with roof, with chimney, up and down, colors, little window, big window. So we make a study to recall the archetype of the building, of the house in Sardinia, that is made with simple elements that you can see here. This is a typical Sardinian house that is completely blind towards the north wind, and it's very, very simple. And the profile of the ground goes towards the sea. And so we don't cut, also in this case, the hill, and we never destroyed one tree or one rock. And this is the archetype of the house. And so we make this kind of building. The fire, for instance, for the wind, is built in a hole in the land, you see. So these are the details, a little element, but they were published in a lot of magazines and books. You know the archetype of the element on your left side and the element that we realized. So I continue to say that it's not vernacular element, but they are the interpretation of the site. This is another very important element very, very old, prehistoric, in which they don't know the arch, they know only way to get a triangle, and so in this way we this kind of thing. These are the details. And you have to know that in Sardinia the trees come out from the granite, and the granites, and the tree is the roof for the shepherd. So for the reason we make this kind of details. This is the beginning, this is the end. This is another competition that we won in Rome, in the country of Rome. Rome, you have to know that it's in the country full of aqueducts and ruins. And we have to build, for the competition, a lot of volume. So for this reason, we make it possible to have a sort of serial element like an aqueduct, and we arrive to do an architecture like this. This was another competition. The greatest part of our work is derived by competition, national and international. This is a very particular situation. The Jubilee of the 2000, okay, for the Christianity is a very, very important thing. And it's another competition, and we have to build a stage for 1 million of people. But in the end, they were 2 million. So very difficult. This was the final result. Many other competitors make this stage like it was the Beatles or the Pink Floyd and so on. I try to recall the tradition of Rome, in which very important architects during the century make the famous 40 hours machine, a scenography that was for 40 hours. For instance, when arrived a pope, when arrived a king in Rome, they immediately make this 40 hours machine. And so, for this reason, I didn't know how to do, because you have to know that the Jubilee in Rome were made in the town. This, for the million of people, was made in the country. So I have no measure to understand the length of this stage. So we study all the whole, that I call the whole, the square of Rome, and I got the average of the 160 meters. That was the wall, the backstage. And the backstage here, I don't want to continue, it's a very long story, but it's full of abstract religious meaning. So it's the story of the church, the primitive church, and then the church of the Renaissance, the Baroque, and the tent, typical of that accompany the Pope and many other events. It's like this. It was a tent for 2,000 people, but anyway. And so it was also the liturgical elements now are in another church, and the Pope was very happy about this building, and he fly with an helicopter during the work. And this was the final result. I was received by the Pope that thanks me for this work. This other competition near the most important station in Rome, and this building, it was inspired to the presence of the Servians walls, and with the travertino over, and this is the final result. This is a bank, also we put very attention to the details, and you can see this ashlar stair with wood and iron, and this is a church that was inaugurated by Pope Francis 2 years ago. And also in this case, there was a suburb in which there was no identity. So in this outskirt, I try to recall the presence of Rome with the materials that are bricks, travertino, and a sort of fortress, because all around was a terrible situation. This is the court inside, and you can see how in a contemporary way you can see this is in Rome, it's not in New York, it's not in Tokyo, it's not in other place, because it's in continuity with the tradition of the site. You can see inside, and the roof that is related to the symbol of Christianity. So this is the end. This book, written by Milda, Valentin, and me, was a gift that we gave to the Pope because he made the inauguration of this building, and he was very happy about this building. I don't know if it is very diplomatic, but anyway, he made a lot of compliments about this. And these are the impossible works. When I told you that an architect is like a pianist, like a singer, like a painter, he had never to stop his work. Also, if it is not possible to make a work, he had to continue, not to lose potentially, because you know this was for the Biennale. That was this famous building that was unfinished. That was the house of Peggy Guggenheim, and this building was never finished. So for the Biennale, they say, try to rebuild this building. And so we tried to rebuild this building. And we know that it was quite impossible to rebuild in reality. But anyway, these were the details with the oak pillars and many other things. It is the end result that you can go up on the floor, on the roof, and then to come down for the modern, for a museum of modern art. This is my school, my school that I don't like at all. And so nobody tell me something, but I made the project and dreaming a new school coming from the old school, with the library, with the restaurant, with the chimney, and so on. And from this point in Rome, if you come in Rome, and I hope that you will come in Rome, you can see that this is in a place where there are the most beautiful sunset in Rome. So this is a competition that we made last year that we lost, but is the City of Science, with the very old building that we restored. And this is the last work, perhaps. And we are in the country of Rome, in a country of Rome that is full of outskirts and new buildings that we don't like. And there is no identity in this expansion in Rome. And this is a pity. And is disappearing the country all around Rome that was described by very important travelers such as Goethe, such as Gregorovius, such as Stendhal. And so for this reason I try to make this project that is, when I come back to Rome tomorrow, in 10 days we inaugurate this building that is the Church of the Jubilee of 2016. And so for the reason we try to make a very simple element, just recalling what it was the country of Rome. This is in which way this country is disappearing. And so this church is in the middle of these outskirt buildings. So it's dedicated to Teresa di Calcutta, Saint Teresa di Calcutta. It is just to be over the poor people, and in this way, this just of mercy is the sense of this building. And for this reason, we try to do something that was really the memory of this site and was the identity of this site. On a certain way, we have the on this block there are a ground floor classroom and the hall, and then the rooms of the priest. On this other side there is the big element. So I try to connect these two buildings into different level with a stair that was something that was not a simple stair, not something that can in a certain way be the tension between these two elements. And this is the result of the chair that is in building. It's not finished, of course. You can see it in this way. And this is the final result. And using also in Rome is designed by churches. And every church has a square in front of it. That is the place where people can stay together and they can meet each other. So, for this reason, we make something that was not anonymous, but give identity to this site. This is the apse. The internal is not finished. I hope when I'll be back will be finished. And so, this is the final result against the monotony of the site all around. So what I say, we make the possible just to arrive not in this condition with the pre-existing element and with the innovation, but rather to arrive to this situation. This is our strength and our continuity. Thank you.
Any questions? If no question, because the students maybe are a little bit shy, I have one question.
What?
Actually, it's a difficult question. Which kind of suggestion can you give to the young master, future master in the architecture? How to approach the client, how to approach a very difficult situation? Because in China, very often, the clients are very demanding, and the architect doesn't have any big power to control the project. I think something similar in Italy. But the great master is the one who somehow can control the quality of the project. So, in all those buildings, we find a very sensitive, very great quality in between the control of the size, the small scale, the atmosphere, the space, and so on. So, which suggestion do you give to the student to become a great master of architecture?
First of all, I can speak for my work. You have to believe in your work and to pay anything, everything to reach your goal. And many times I have to convince the client slowly, becoming friends, making all the possible to convince, to maintain the quality of the product. The client generally arrive to say, oh, the sooner the better, the sooner the better. So we run, so we have to go, oh, don't lose your time, no, it's not important, these details. But in the end, especially when I built the house in Sardinia, when I built the churches, and the end, he can gain more because the quality of his cell is very, very interesting from a commercial point of view, because the mentality of the client is to make money. But in this way, you have to convince to make money more with the quality. And for this reason, I remember that I thought many times in the United States. For this reason, I gave the honorable degree to Joseph Rippert, to Robert Venturi, to Pei, Mr. Pei. Mr. Pei is an example of what I'm saying. Mr. Pei convinced.
Mr. Pei is a Chinese, yeah.
I am Pei convinced all his clients to make better, and in this way they follow him. So at the beginning I told you that you have to study very much and to understand the theater of the world. I told you the theater of the so to know people, to meet people, to enter in the soul of the people, and to understand little by little your client, and to make feel him important. And so he makes something, if in his point is make a lot of work without quality, you have to convince that this is the moment to make quality. And sometimes the greatest part of my work I won in this sense, but other times I lost. And at this moment I said goodbye to my clients, because I didn't want to have a quality that was not in my aim, you know. So I repeat, the only thing very important is to believe in his own work. If you believe in your work, little by little you have argue, you have a discussion, you have a lot of things, but at the end, little by little, with a patient, long, very long patient, you arrive to obtain this goal.
Another question that is in my mind, if you have no other question, but 1 minute. It's very important the point of view of a theory. Sometime in China, the theory on the back of the project is a little bit weak. What does it mean? In one interview that we have done with my student, who are famous Chinese architect, we asked, what is the theory, what is the concept of your architecture, what is your vision? And you say, make the client happy. That is bullshit, of course. So a theory has to be a very solid cultural background. So the point is, what is the importance of the theory before the first line of the project?
Very important. It's very important, but theory without practice is completely useless.
Mao Zedong say the same issue. So. Chairman Mao.
And the practice without theory is completely useless. When you remember the first slide I showed you was the binomial by Petreschi. Ratio cinazio, it means study, and come si chiama?
Fabbrica.
Fabbrica, it's a working site. So you have to study a lot, because it's useful for two reasons. One, for your idea. Secondly, because you can, with theory, with study, to be more convincing with your client. Because a man of culture is very important in front of an ignorant man. And so there is a way to understand, to enter in the soul of the client, and little by little making him proud of the work. As at the end, if I must be sincere, he have to think that is the client that decides to have this quality. This is the trick. This is the secret. And so he's very satisfied, because I remember, oh, you know, I make this one because the architect suggests me, but I decide to do such a thing. So I'm very happy about it. So the importance is that you have not to destroy your work or to sell yourself. This is the worst thing. The worst thing. Not sell yourself for money. This is the only thing. For 40 years I resist. I hope to continue my last 40 years. Next 40 years.